What are some things that you should know about voting and polling day in Guyana? Stay tuned to find out. My fellow Guyanese, my name is Brennan Glassford and you are watching Clarity, where we provide clarity on legal issues that you have questions about. Before we begin, allow me to say this is an educational discussion. It is not legal advice, nor should it be considered legal advice. Now with that out of the way, let's address the issues that you have questions about. If you are employed somewhere, the employer must give you reasonable time to vote outside of your lunch hour, right? Depending on the constituency or the polling place that you are going to vote. They cannot stop you from voting, nor can they deduct money out of your pay for taking time off to vote. It is an offense. Let's bring the relevant provisions on screen now.
Section 801, subsection 1 of the Representation of the People's Act provides that every employer shall permit every elector in his employ, other than any elector on whose behalf another elector has been appointed to vote as a proxy, to be absent from his work on election day for a reasonable time, in addition to the normal midday meal hour, for the purpose of voting at the election, and no employer shall make any deduction from pay or other remuneration of any such elector, or impose on him or exacts from him any penalty by reason of his absence during such period. Section 82 of the Representation of the People's Act provides that any employer who, directly or indirectly, refuses or who by intimidation, undue influence, or in any other way interferes with the granting to any elector in his employ of the period for voting prescribed by Section 801 shall on summary conviction be liable to a fine of $32,500 or to imprisonment for 6 months.
What I found very interesting is spirit shops and places selling liquor are not allowed to be open to the public during voting hours. It is a prohibition to be open and selling those items during polling time, which is... Let's bring the relevant provisions on screen.
Section 80, subsection 1 of the Representation of the People's Act provides all premises to which spirit shop licenses, off licenses, or selling licenses have been issued under the Intoxicating Liquor Licensing Act shall be closed and kept closed on election day. Section 80, subsection 2 of the Representation of the People's Act provides that no intoxicating liquor shall be sold, offered for sale, or given away at any premises to which a license issued under the Intoxicating Liquor Licensing Act applies, at any time between the opening of and the closing of the poll on election day. Section 80, subsection 3 of the Representation of the People's Act provides that no intoxicating liquor shall be supplied to any person at any premises to which a license issued under the Registration of Clubs Act applies at any time between the opening of and the closing of the poll on election. Section 80, subsection 4 of the Representation of the People's Act provides that any person who contravenes any of the provisions of this section shall be liable on summary conviction to a fine of $65,000 and to imprisonment for 6 months.
An interesting power that I have observed in the Act that presiding officers have is that they have a power to keep order in the polling station. To preserve order, they can regulate how people go in and out of the polling station, how many people can be in the polling station. They can remove people for the preservation of order on polling day. Now, if you have been removed, you cannot re-enter the polling station unless you have the permission of that presiding officer. So it is best not to be rowdy. Let's bring the relevant provisions on screen now.
Section 79, subsection 1 of the Representation of the People's Act provides the presiding officer may, for the purpose of maintaining order at a polling place, regulate the admission of electors and may, if he deems it advisable, direct that not more than one elector for each compartment shall at the same time enter the room where the poll is held. Exclude all other persons except members of the Commission, elections officers, duly appointed candidates, polling agents for the polling place, members of the police force, the Guyana Defense Force, elections agents, assistant agents for the district in which the polling place is situate. Issue such directions as may be necessary for such purpose. Section 7 to 9, subsection 2 of the Representation of the People's Act provides that if any person, whether entitled to enter or not, misconducts himself at a polling place or fails to obey any lawful direction, requirement, or order of the presiding officer, whether given or made under this or any other section, he may immediately, by order of the presiding officer, be removed therefrom by a member of the police force or by any other person authorized in writing by the presiding officer to remove him, and the person so removed shall not, without the permission of the presiding officer, again enter the polling place on election day, provided that the powers conferred by this subsection shall not be so exercised as to prevent an elector entitled to vote at a polling place having an opportunity to vote thereat.
So I hope we have given you clarity on those legal issues you have had questions about. Until next time, take care.